IT today?
Exactly.
He's pretending
we're
to be
live.
smart
So
today.
it's live now, even though it looks like it's just buffering. If you want to close this, otherwise get that go.
Close it or minimize
so
it?
so you're live already.
Okay.
I would close it because it's really like it'll start broadcasting, but 10 seconds behind.
Okay.
So I used to think if I closed it, it would start up live.
Okay, is anybody waiting for me to allow them in?
I don't think so.
Commissioner Gonzalez said he was going to be joining us. So hopefully he'll join us.
Good evening, folks. For anyone who's out there in the viewing public, I'm Tim Howe, Deputy City Manager, Director of Community Development. We have not started the meeting as of yet, so please hang tight. We will be starting very shortly.
I see someone on an iPhone, but that's all I see. Let me see if. I can admit them and then mute them if they're not part. Let's say if it's Aida, I can admit her in. So let me see who it is. So the caller on the iPhone, can you identify yourself, please?
Time shows Marvin.
Ah,
I know I was logged in onto my computer, but my computer just froze and something happened with my internet. But here I am. Thank you.
Okay. All right, great. So let's see.
Interesting.
we still have at least a quorum. So.
Yes, we do. So I guess if we want to wait 2 more minutes, we can go to 6:40.
No problem.
Hey, Alvin, did you get that light taken care of?
The what?
Did you get that light taken care of?
Yeah, pretty much. But I still need to talk to you about doing all that, changing the boxes and figuring out how to make a plug for that gazebo out there by the pool.
Okay.
I still got lots of work for you, kid.
Commissioner Perez, do you want me to remove your desktop?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So.
Something new.
Chair Durham,
Yes, sir.
we can start whenever you would like to.
That's your pleasure. At this point, then, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Preservation Commission of the City of San Fernando. And Michelle, would you call the roll, please?
Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Commission. This is a roll call for the Planning and Preservation Commission of June 8th, 2020. Chairperson Alvin Durham,
Present.
Vice Chair Hector Pacheco,
Present.
Commissioner Ivan Gonzalez, Commissioner Aida Montes, Commissioner Marvin Perez.
Present.
For the record, Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Montes are currently absent.
Do we want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or just sit where we are? I have a flag behind me if we need to, so. We can stand.
I'll
Stand,
stand.
do it right.
Fine. I am not gonna sit down. Al, what is wrong with you?
Hey,
Military man.
ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
Second it.
Yeah, you can do that, Hector, sure. Hector's approval. Who's going to second?
I can second.
Okay, we got it. All those in favor? Oh, no, sorry. Michelle, we need to do roll call and everything, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So Vice Chair Pacheco, you move to approve the agenda of June 8th, 2020.
Yes.
Commissioner Perez, you second.
I do, yes.
And your vote, Chairperson Durham.
Yes.
All right, so that is a vote of 3 yes.
Do we have anybody wishing to read into the rules of statement or whatever?
As of 6 o'clock, which I will probably run over to my computer to make sure that I don't have any pending emails. I did have one comment but it was regards to the public hearing.
Okay.
So go ahead and let me run over and see if I have any pending emails. Give me 1 second.
We got time. Time's up. Okay.
It was just an email that I received from somebody who's trying to log on, it looks like.
Oh, Ivan. Commissioner Gonzalez looks like he's trying to log on.
Okay, good.
Hi, Michelle.
Yes.
It looks like Commissioner Gonzalez is attempting to log in.
Is he Barbie Gonzalez?
Probably.
It says Ivan Gonzalez.
Oh,
Hey, I don't know anything about that. I don't know.
That's probably him.
I went over to my computer and he says he's logged in, but he's not allowed to join in. So
And he forgot to check something.
you're not Barbie.
No.
There you go.
So for the record, Commissioner Gonzalez has joined the Zoom meeting at 6:44 p.m.
Yeah, he looks like Barbie.
Afternoon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Actually,
afternoon.
Michelle, were there any?
There were no emails, no public statements, and I'm also on checking on YouTube, and there's nothing there yet. or at all, I should say. So no public statements.
And then we're gonna close public business and go right on to, the new business. I'm sorry, we haven't approved the minutes, did we?
The consent calendar.
Yeah, the consent calendar, so we're good. Consent calendar needs to have a motion. I need a motion to approve the consent calendar, guys.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, we're good. And then
Sorry.
you need to do the roll call for that as well.
Sorry, who made the motion?
I believe it was the chairman.
I think I did, just because we weren't getting the.
Okay, so the consent calendar, you move to approve the consent calendar, Chairperson Durham.
Yes.
And Commissioner Gonzalez, you second.
I do.
And Vice Chair Pacheco, your vote.
Yes.
And Commissioner Perez, your vote.
Yes.
And so that is a vote of 4 yeses.
That being done, then we can move on to new business. I think that's up to Gerard.
Okay, so before we move on to new business, allow me to admit Jennifer Lynch, as well as Robert Abbott.
Okay, so I think
Thank
we have
you.
Ms.
Thank you, Chair Durham and honorable commissioners. I'm going to pass this over to our associate planner second, but I'll give a quick introduction to the item. And we have some new faces that have joined us that represent the applicant. And we have another canine fan, apparently, of the project. So this item is for a variance related to parking for the Citibank retail branch at 456 South Brand Boulevard, adjacent to our central business district. You'll probably, some of the members will remember this site because we approved a similar action almost exactly 2 years ago. And now I'll pass it over to our associate planner, who will go into more detail as far as what we're here for today and what's changed since the most recent approval back in 2018. So I'll pass to Gerardo Marquez, our associate planner, for a presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tim. Hope everybody is staying safe. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so that I can get going on the presentation.
That is using me.
Michelle, it looks like I need permission from you to do a screen sharing.
I think so. I suspect that's Robert.
Tim, how were you able to do that the last time? Were you the co-host? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Jerry, you'll need to you'll click share screen.
Uh-huh.
And a permission will be, a pop-up should show up for Michelle to accept.
It doesn't look, I mean, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. I press OK, and
Oh, great.
Michelle, is anything popping up in your?
It's not. I can
See, Robert's on the screen there.
I can make you the co-host.
Okay.
You want to make the co-host, yes.
Okay.
So are you allowed to do it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Affirmative.
Okay. Okay. So as Tim mentioned, approximately 2 years ago to the date, a site plan review and a variance review application was presented to the Planning Commission for their approval. I'm going to go ahead and go over this presentation, and I will go ahead and go into detail on how that approval will coincide with tonight's approval. So let me go ahead and get started. So tonight before you, we have variance 2020-001 with resolution number 2020-001 for the property located at 456 South Brand Boulevard. The proposed project is a request for approval of variance 2020-001 in order to allow for a portion of the required off-street parking to be satisfied by payment of an in lieu parking fee. So as you can see here by the highlighted lots in red, the current site is zoned C1 limited commercial with an approximate combined lot area of 20,445 square feet. The building that is situated on the site is approximately 5,986 square feet, and the subject site holds a general plan land use designation of commercial business district, also known as CBD. Here's an aerial view of the site highlighted in yellow. As you can see, the subject site is on the northeast corner of the intersection of Hollister and South Brand. It's just south of the Chase Bank, and it's just west of the what we all know as the Elks Lodge, which is this huge lot here. I'm gonna go over the site plan. As you can see, the northern portion of the lot is where most of the traffic and parking and circulation takes place for the project site. The project site provides 13 parking stalls on site. Ingress and egress to this site is solely provided off of South Brand Boulevard. And they also have a drive-through ATM service, which helps with the circulation on the site. On the southern portion of the site, we have the 5,986 square foot building, which is currently occupied by Citibank. As you can see, that building is closest to the intersection of Hollister and South Brand Boulevard. Oh, excuse me. So we try to take some pictures to capture how this area functions and what's currently there. And I will be going over how some of what you are currently seeing will be addressed by the past approval and the conditions of approval that we have before you tonight. On the top left, we have a view of the parking. We tried to capture both driveways to show, the both ingress and egress off of South Brand. You can see that there's that huge horseshoe-shaped circulation on and off the site. Top right, we wanted to zoom in on the ATM to see how that aids into the circulation for this property. Bottom left, we can see the rear of the portion, rear of the site, excuse me. You can see a trellis here, and that I also will go over and how that comes into play with the past site plan approval that took place 2 years ago in 2018. And the bottom right, we can see the rear of the property again with the adjacent, what we know as the Elks Lodge, where once upon a time ago, they had a parking agreement, which is no longer the case, which is, So prior approvals. In June 5th, 2018, the Planning Commission approved Site Plan Review 2017-019, which provided for site improvements such as restriping, a new trash enclosure, ADA compliant improvements, and the removal of that trellis that I just showed you. Variance 2017-00, I'm sorry, let me go back a little bit. It just wanted to note that these improvements will be carried over to this approval tonight, and I will show that. I will go over those improvements and the conditions that go hand in hand with those improvements that are currently in the conditions of approval that you have before you tonight. Variance 2017-002, which the commission approved back in 2018, allowed for an off-site parking agreement to satisfy the parking requirement. That entitlement expired July 5th, 2019, given that the applicant could not produce the off-site parking agreement, which ultimately led them to, wanting to comply with the parking development standards that the city has, and which ultimately led them to this parking in lieu variance application. Now the variance application. Per our municipal code, the 5,986 square foot commercial building requires 20 parking stalls. With the 13 stalls that they currently have on site, they are deficient with 7. This variance entitlement will allow for the payment of an in lieu parking fee for 7 parking stalls, which will ultimately satisfy their parking requirement. As it is for any other variance application, 7 findings of fact must be made in the affirmative for the approval, for the commission to approve a variance application. I'm going to go over those variance findings that must be made in the affirmative. If you have any questions, if you need any clarification, please go ahead and stop me, and I'll be happy to go over it. So number 1, there are special circumstances or exceptional characteristics applicable to the property involved, including size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, such that strict application of the zoning ordinance deprives such property of privileges enjoyed by other property in the vicinity. The subject site was originally developed with a supplementary adjoining surface parking lot that helped satisfy the retail bank's required parking spaces. However, the adjoining lot is no longer available to provide parking for the retail bank. Thus, only 13 parking spaces remain to serve the subject site. Additionally, the subject site is notably well placed for access within feet of existing public transit rider stops. The Metro Local Bus Line 234 route has both a northbound and southbound stop at the corner of South Brand Boulevard and Hollister Street. The nearest bus stop is approximately 100 linear feet from the subject site. This Route 234 provides, I think at the northernmost, terminus for the bus route, it provides a stop at LA Mission College, and it also provides access to the Orange Line. So that's beneficial, and it covers a wide area of the valley. The San Fernando trolley service also includes a stop at the corner of South Brand Boulevard and Hollister Street. This service provided by the city provides riders to commercial areas throughout the city of San Fernando. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made in the affirmative. Number 2, the granting of such variance will not be detrimental to the public interest, safety, health, or welfare, and will not be detrimental or injurious to the property or improvements in the same vicinity and zone in which the property is located. The granting of the proposed variance would allow the retail bank branch use to continue its operation and will not modify the already approved configuration of the site. The existing site provides for required vehicle ingress and egress and will not be detrimental or injurious to the property or improvements in the same vicinity and C1 commercial zone. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made. Number 3, granting of such variance will not be contrary to or in conflict with the general purposes and intent of this chapter, nor the goals and programs of the general plan. Pursuant to City Code Section 106-827, a variance may be granted to allow for a deficiency in on-site parking spaces to be satisfied by means of an in lieu parking fee payment. Also, the proposed variance aligns with the general plan's purpose to promote economic viability of commercial areas. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made in the affirmative. Number 4, the variance request is consistent with the purposes and intent of the zone in which it is located. The current bank use is an allowed use within the C1 zone. Additionally, the variance request to satisfy a deficiency in on-site parking spaces for non-residential use by means of an in lieu parking fee payment are consistent with the purpose and intent of the C1 commercial zone. With this finding, I just want to clarify, this in lieu fee that I keep repeating, it is reserved for commercial types of businesses. So a residential project would not be able to come in and pay an in lieu fee for a residential type of development. With that said, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made. Number 5, the subject site is physically suitable for the proposed variance. The existing commercial building meets all applicable development standards with the exception of providing of all the required off-street parking. Additionally, site improvements that were approved through the site plan review in 2018 will be required, and again, additionally, to all the new variance conditions of approval for this application. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made. Number 6, there are adequate provisions for water, sanitation, and public utilities and services to ensure that the proposed variance will not be detrimental to public health and safety. There's no additional square footage being proposed for the project site. Excuse me. So the current footprint is not being expanded, so there won't be any additional, water service or any concerns with sanitation from staff. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made. Number 7, there will be adequate provisions for public access to service a property which is subject of the variance. The site will continue to provide public and emergency access to the subject property. And again, as I stated before, the site improvements that were approved in 2018 will be enforced with this, again, with this variance and are reiterated in the conditions of approval, ensuring the safety, appropriate public access, ingress and egress. Thus, it is staff's assessment that this finding can be made. In light of the analysis, it is staff's assessment that the proposed variance is warranted. Staff recommends that the commission approve variance 2020-001, allowing for a portion of the required off-street parking spaces for the property located at 456 South Brent Boulevard to be satisfied by an in lieu parking fee payment, pursuant to the Planning Commission Resolution number 2020-001 and conditions of approval attached as Exhibit A. That does conclude staff's presentation. I did want to go over a couple of the conditions of approval attached as Exhibit A to Attachment A. As I stated, conditions of approval were carried over to ensure that the applicant and the property owner follow through with those site improvements that were approved back in 2018. You know, in these conditions, it goes over landscape, over design. It also goes over the trash enclosure, the new trash enclosure, which will need to be provided in order for this variance to also be deemed that they satisfy the conditions of approval within this entitlement. One of the main conditions that, as well, you also see the trellis in there. I'm sorry, the trellis. One of the new conditions that was provided with this variance that was kind of switched out for the offsite parking agreement that was approved back in 2018 is conditional approval number 25, which speaks to the in lieu fee payment. These in lieu fees are established by city council, right? They are a fixed rate, and the current rate for a parking stall within the city is at $8,192.50. So when we multiply that by 7, which is what the applicant is applying for, is $57,347.50. This fee will need to be paid prior to a certificate of occupancy is issued to the site. One thing that I want to know, I know that we have it's already an operating bank, right? And we are cognizant of that, and we work with the businesses in our city. We're a very business friendly city. We want to, when in talking with staff, we came to the ultimate conclusion that, to ensure, right, that the applicant follows through with all the conditions of approval, which I'm sure they will. We have other ways, like, let's say, obviously, it's the last in the last entitlement, they did not follow through. That variance expired, right? If similar case happens to arise, then staff reserves the right to revoke a commercial their occupancy in order to ensure that all these conditions of approval are followed through. With that said, I know that Jennifer Lynch is on the call with us. If if the commission has any questions for the applicant, know she is available. That concludes staff's presentation.
So Jerry, if you want to stop sharing your screen.
Oh.
So we can go ahead and. All right.
Chair Durham, you're still muted.
Uh-oh.
There we go. I unmuted you.
He actually controls me. Yeah. No, as I said, from our commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant or for Jerry from the presentation?
I do have a question. This is Marvin for Timothy. If he can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Is there a limit of in lieu of parking fees allowed within the zone?
No.
Okay. If for some reason approving this, creates like a parking, issue in the future, does the city plan to add additional public parking spaces, or is that not part of this?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Perez. So it's probably beneficial to explain a bit of what the purpose of the in lieu parking fund is, that it is exactly what you just mentioned. So over time, the city has accrued these funds by projects that have, chosen to meet their parking requirement by paying into this fee. So over time, the city has accrued a fund, and the notion, this is not, unique to City of San Fernando. You accrue these funds, and then over time, you accrue enough where you can go out and A, acquire property, and then B, improve that property to add additional public parking to benefit the neighborhood or the community. So that's exactly what the purpose of the In Lieu parking fund is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hector, Ivan?
No, good.
Yes, okay, good. Hector?
I have no questions at the moment.
Now, how do we do this public hearing? We
Well,
don't have
if I may-
anybody.
If I may, you may want to ask the applicant if they have any statement they want to make, and then after that, see if there's any public comment that
Okay.
may be made.
Lynch, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, so good evening, commissioners. My name is Jennifer Lynch. I'm a land use attorney with Manat, Phelps and Phillips, and I'm here on behalf of Citibank. And I did want to just thank Mr. Marquez for being so pleasant to work with through this process. It's really, of course, the best case scenario for local businesses to work with staff that is just so responsive and on top of things as we navigate through these permitting issues. And as he mentioned, Citibank has secured shared parking agreements for these 7 spaces that cannot fit on site for many years. However, people don't necessarily want to hold empty parking spaces on their property forever. So Citibank has had to sort of constantly renegotiate those agreements when a property owner wants to redevelop their property or use those spaces for their own purposes. And so this is, of course, burdensome on Citibank and this branch, especially considering that this branch's on-site lot really never reaches its capacity. And street parking is really plentiful, especially on Brand and Hollister, right adjacent to the facade of the Citibank branch. So we would really appreciate not having to keep going through these ongoing negotiations for parking spaces that ultimately aren't really used and that take up empty space downtown when the money could be going to the city to fund parking and transit projects that would actually get used. So, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Mr. Abbott is also here representing Citibank. So between the two of us, we should be able to address any issues that come up.
Thank you.
So at this time, you may want to see, check with Ms. De Santiago if there are any public comments that have either been submitted before the meeting or in the last few minutes.
Okay. I do have an email that was received today at 4:38 p.m. From one of the neighboring properties. So I do have an email for whenever you're ready to open it up for the public.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing.
All right.
And before we dive into the correspondence we've received, just a note for the viewing public at home. Now you do have an opportunity, if you have not submitted any comment thus far, to provide comment live through YouTube. So staff is monitoring the comment section. So if you do have any questions or any comment at this time, we'll afford you a couple of minutes. I know I type really slowly with 2 fingers usually. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to get in any comments at this time.
And at this point as well, I'll run over to my computer and see if I have any emails that are coming in, because the notice did state that we would be receiving public comments until the public comment section of the hearing. So I will be right back.
Okay. pregnant pause.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
So I do not have any emails in my inbox, and I am monitoring the YouTube. We have 7 people watching. However, I'm not seeing any messages or comments coming through. But we are on a delay with YouTube. So with that said, I would give it a little bit more time whenever, just a
Any
couple
other
more
que-
minutes.
Any other questions come to mind from the commissioners or from Tim or Gary?
Michelle, would
Dead airspace is a pain.
Yeah.
Michelle.
You know, I think if you are satisfied that anybody who could conceivably want to comment has availed themselves of that opportunity, I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to close the public comment portion at this point, if that's the case.
And Michelle, did you want to read into the record the correspondence we received?
Yes, so for the record, I received an email this afternoon from Dave Michelle at 4:38 p.m. And the subject line is opposing comments on variance 2020-001. Dear San Fernando Planning and Preservation Commission, Valley Alarm would like to voice our opposition to variance 2020-001 at tonight's hearing. Following are the comments we wish to be heard. Valley Alarm is located at 804 Pico Street, San Fernando. Our parking lot at Hollister and Chatsworth is adjacent to Citibank's parking lot. The Citibank parking lot is too small to accommodate their usage. Frequently, the lot is full and customers have to park on the street. At 2 p.m. today, I visually inspected their parking lot. They had only one open spot at a non-peak time and date. This negatively impacts our property and the surrounding neighborhood. Street parking creates unnecessary density in the neighborhood, and it creates a nuisance for Valley Alarm. Accessing the bank from street parking causes bank customers to trespass across our parking lot, creating slip and fall type liability. Bank customers have also damaged our fence to gain access to the bank. We feel that the bank should secure alternative parking as it has in the past. Perhaps the bank can lease nearby public parking spots from the city to be used for employee parking, thereby opening customer parking spots in their lot. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Dave Michelle, co-president of Valley Alarm.
If there are no other comments, it might be appropriate at this time to allow the applicant to respond to the comments if they're inclined.
Which one would like to respond, Robert or?
Robert Abbott, I can respond. Our intention is to use those city lots as overflow as needed. I mean, as I understand the code, that's the theory that's proposed here, is that we pay the in lieu fee. The city uses that to develop lots, and then those lots are available to us as needed for our overflow needs. So that is certainly our intention.
And if I might add, the street parking here is plentiful, especially on Brand. So we were actually down there today at the lunch hour, which is when you would assume is the peak time for people to visit a bank branch. There were hardly any cars at all on Brand the entire length of the block. And so those people would, if a customer had to park on Brand, they would park on Brand and immediately access the Citibank property. There would be no crossing or trespassing other person's property. There was also several spots available on Hollister, although not as many as on Brand. We don't really see any issues with people having to cross adjacent property. The property is actually fenced, so somebody crossing the adjacent lot that is the the discussion of that email wouldn't even be able to access the Citibank building because they would be blocked by a fence. So those people would, of course, be using the sidewalk. There is nothing wrong with street parking. And of course, as I mentioned earlier today, at the peak hour, there were plenty of spots in the Citibank lot that were available. You know, when these standards came to be and were developed for the bank branch, they weren't really considering all of the online banking and app-based banking that we do today. Many people don't have to access the branch as often as they would previously, or they're using the branch simply to use the ATM. And so, you know, like we said, I have plenty of pictures that we took today of the lots and the streets showing how ample the parking was at around 12:30 this afternoon. I, of course, would be happy to share them if there's any interest.
Thank you. Okay, is there anything else we need to listen to before we close the public hearing? I don't think so.
Michelle, any comments?
No,
YouTube.
none on YouTube.
So if the planning commission is satisfied, you can either pose additional questions or you can choose to close the public hearing and deliberate.
Yeah, I think I'm going to choose to close the public hearing and then we can talk about this issue amongst us. I will close the public hearing and
for the record, the public hearing is being closed at 7:21 p.m.
And I would entertain any discussion that we have, either from Tim and your staff or from the guys on the commission. Did we hear anything that needs to be illuminated?
Staff's available to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
I don't have any questions. I think it's a reasonable compromise.
Agreed.
So if there's no further deliberation, I guess at this point you may want to entertain motions.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion at this point to either approve or deny or continue. Jump up and let me know.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion.
You want to read that approval?
Yeah.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I move to approve Planning and Preservation Commission Resolution number 2020-001, approving variance 2020-001, which allows for a portion of the required off-street parking spaces to be satisfied by payment of an in lieu parking fee for the property at 456 South Brand Boulevard, subject to the conditions of approval attached at Exhibit A to the resolution.
Thank you. A second.
Second it.
Hector, okay. Michelle, would you read the roll, please?
Commissioner Gonzalez, you move to approve Planning and Preservation Commission Resolution number 2020-001, approving variance 2020-001, which allows for a portion of the required off-street parking space to be satisfied by payment of an in lieu parking fee for the property at 456 South Brand Boulevard, subject to the conditions of approval attached as Exhibit A to the resolution. Is that your vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco, you second?
Correct.
Commissioner Marvin Perez, your vote?
Yes, I approve.
Let's see, who am I missing? Chairperson Alvin Durham. I'm sorry?
Nobody important.
Chairperson Alvin Durham, your vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, so I have a vote of 4 yes to approve variance 2020-001. I have 1 member absent and no one in opposition. So the variance is approved. However, there is a 10-day appeal period that we have to wait on. So your application is, and that is for any member of the public who wishes to appeal the Planning and Preservation Commission. You would do so by submitting your appeal paperwork to the city clerk's office. Otherwise, the application is approved 10 days from now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Well,
Good evening.
Tim,
All right, thank you, Chair Durham. The next item is the discussion regarding bylaws, our first ever bylaws and rules of procedure for the commission. Probably long overdue, and once we, realized that it was something that the commission lacked, staff put together a draft, and we presented this to the commission back in March. We got some of your feedback at that time. We incorporated it. We actually got some great feedback from our city attorneys as well. So we incorporated that as well. What you have before you is an update that reflects contributions from staff, the commission from our discussion back in March, as well as the city attorney's office on the bylaws and rules of procedure. So unless there's any specific questions, I'll probably just walk very quickly through these and just kind of outline what's in here. So the first section is related to the organization of the commission and the officers, that being of 5 members, each with equal participation privileges. They denote a process to select a chair and a vice chair. And that occurring in January or the first meeting thereafter, if there is no January meeting. It outlines the responsibilities of the chair, obviously to preside over the meeting, and for the vice chair to substitute in the chair's absence. It calls out the duties and powers of the commission, and as you all know, you're here to address, interpretations and implementation of the general plan and zoning, as well as land subdivision. Rules of order. So this was an item that we tailored to include reference to Rosenberg's rules of order rather than what has historically been a reference to Robert's rules of order. And Rosenberg's rules of order are attached as attachment B to this report. So you have that in total. And I mean, it's just the elegance of it that I think it's from beginning to end, including cover page and end page. It's, I think, all of 11 pages. And that's the totality of it. So you can actually say you read it, and you wouldn't be lying as you would if you said you read Robert's Rules of Order.
oh, yeah, come on.
Yeah. So the meetings, obviously, our meetings discusses the public nature of the meetings and the schedule of the regular meetings occurring the second Monday of each month. It outlines how we would have we would note adjourned meetings as well as special meetings, study sessions, or workshops, which we periodically do schedule. It discusses the agenda, the purpose of the agenda, and then the next item is really order of the meeting. So what happens and in what order. It discusses the process for our presentations for hearings. It outlines how motions get made, and ultimately how voting occurs, what is a quorum, what's considered a majority vote, the recording of votes, importantly, disqualifications from voting, or areas where an abstention would be warranted for a commissioner. And then ultimately just a review procedure. What I'll highlight there is we sort of tag January of every calendar year being a time when we can, take this up again, re-review it, see if there's any changes, over time that we want to make.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, that concludes staff's presentation. Ultimately, staff's recommendation is, subject to any further discussion on any, desired changes or tweaks to this. Staff would recommend that the commission adopt the proposed bylaws and rules of procedures.
And for those of you that weren't here when Stormy passed, we didn't have anything in place for how we were gonna do the transition from me being the vice chair to the chair, and then, oh, well, we don't have a vice chair. So this is a quantum improvement. Thank you. Any other discussion from the members? And if not, then I would love to have a motion to approve.
Commissioner Perez, did you want to suggest some of the changes that you had recommended, or to see if the commission concurs with your suggestions?
Sure. I had sent you the attachment with my, I guess, notes on. I'm not able to share it because I'm not on my computer.
Okay.
Are you able to share that with?
Sure. Give
they
me
can
2
see?
seconds and I can go and print them out. One of the first one that jumps out at me is you had requested, instead of 5 regular members, 5 active members for the organization part.
Correct.
it-
But instead of regular, I figure it didn't make sense to me. So I thought maybe you should say something of appointed active members, because I wouldn't know what a non-regular member will be unless there's something I'm missing.
Okay. Let me go and get those your scanned copies that you submitted to me via
Right.
email so that I can include those.
Richard, any comment? Any comment about that request to change? I think it makes sense.
Is that question being posed to the floor or to me in particular? or-
It's been close to everybody, so you're
Oh, okay, got it.
one of everybody, so hey. I'm comfortable either way. I think, having been here for so damn long, I'm comfortable with everything.
I like the display in back of you. It's pretty impressive.
That's my wonderful young, well, no, not so young. My son decided one day after I had retired, Dad, you need a place to put all your stuff.
Yeah.
And that was
Are those sabers, the two
Yeah,
things that are
right.
crossed?
That's
Those are
that's
beautiful.
my Army officer saber.
Wow.
He bought that with the box. He made the box and it's with the saber. And I have an old Civil War cavalry saber that my section gave me when I retired. But it doesn't fit so good in it. It's too big.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have them here. So the first one was either appointed or active members.
So, sorry, Michelle, can you point out where in the
I'm sorry, under organization and officers, under A, organization, page 1. The Planning and Preservation Commission or the commission shall consist of 5, and Commissioner Perez suggested either appointed or active members.
I think both would be appropriate. Appointed active makes sense to me, yeah. Because that's being done by your sponsor.
I wonder if there's a need for an adjective there at all, just simply 5 members or.
Yeah, that's true. Ivan? Anybody else?
Sorry, before we can probably discuss these after we hear all of that'd be my recommendation. Let's take them all in and then we can go one by one after that.
Okay. The next one under selection officers, the question came in December instead of January.
Sorry, December or January?
December, why not December instead of January?
Okay. Next one.
The next one is on page 2. And that would be item 5 at the top. The chair shall be an ex officio member of all committees with voice but not vote. And so the request was to define or give an example.
Okay.
The next one would be duties and powers. Number 3, it said deleted in January of 1995. And I can't quite read.
Right, I was just curious, like, what the purpose of that being there meant. If it's already been deleted, that was my question.
So why is it still showing up?
Why is it there? What's the purpose of it?
Okay.
We plagiarized this document from something else. That's what it was. That's
Okay. Okay.
Number 5 was rules of order, and he had underlined Robert's rules of order, which has now been replaced with Rosenberg's. Okay. And then I think the final one is regular meetings. All meetings shall be held on the second Monday of the month at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall, unless unforeseen circumstances takes precedence. So, and those were all the suggestions, correct, Commissioner?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
great. If it would please the chair, we can walk through these and just have a dialogue about them. So the first one, I would probably echo what our city attorney recommended. I don't know that we even need a word there, and we can just say shall consist of 5 members.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Item 2, under the officer selection and the timing in terms of being at the January meeting. So I know that's an item that the commission had discussed many times, when do we do reorg? And we landed at January because it made sense to do it after post an election. And now all of the council elections occur in November. Like we experienced last year, we may not have a certified election result in time for the December meeting, much less have a new commissioner appointed if there is a new council member. So we wanted to give ourselves that additional month, and that's how we landed at January. Was there any other thought, Commissioner Perez, or does January kind of make sense?
It does make sense now. It was just a question. I wasn't sure why, based on the election, November, December seemed appropriate to me, but now that you explained that additional information on certification of an election, timing, and appointing new commissioners, then makes sense January, or maybe even later. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, because we've done it later several times.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that we had in there, if no January meeting was held, or if that opportunity wasn't there, it would be at that next meeting. So I think we're covered in the case we can't do it in January. Any other discussion on that, or does that work as currently stated as January? The next item, so I will defer to our city attorney on this one. At the top of page 2, under responsibilities of the chair, item 5, the chair shall be an ex officio member of all committees with voice but not vote. If Richard could kind of explain what that Latin term means.
That's pretty standard.
I'm actually at a little bit of a loss as to the purpose of that language there. I guess my first question is, what committees are we kind of talking about for that? I can't.
Yeah. We haven't put in a committee in the last few years.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
My thought on that is, commissions like the council, they have the ability to create ad hoc committees if they want to discuss something without violation of the Brown Act and have 2 of the members be part of that. This may not be valid, or this may not actually be. This actually may not be in conformance with the Brown Act, quite frankly. So it may be something that we want to just omit entirely.
Yeah, I'm trying to see here. I would tend to agree on, given that it doesn't seem to have.
Yeah, we haven't appointed a committee that I can remember in the last 8 years I've been here. I don't think I see that comment a lot in bylaws and stuff that organizations I belong to. I don't think we need to have that.
Yeah, and just I did my quick little handy dandy look at legal Latin, and ex officio just simply means by the chair's status as chair,
Right of the office.
they are allowed to be a member of the committee, but with no vote. But it seems to me if we don't really have committees, don't contemplate ever having them, this may just be unnecessary text.
Yeah, and it may be, you could argue if that group is going to meet and the chair joins that meeting, and you have 3 of the 5, that may not be appropriate.
Could create problems, yeah. I mean, I don't think much is added by that language, so I certainly would recommend deleting it.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. And the item section C3, we don't know what was there, so we'll just recommend keeping it deleted. The reference to Rosenberg's rules of order, let's put that on the table for discussion. Was there any opposition to going with Rosenberg's rules of order versus Robert's?
It's a lot easier to deal with than Robert's rules of order, which is a book with about 1.5 inches, well, about a half inch thick, and there's a lot of silly crap in there. No, I think Rosenberg's great. Personally, that's my opinion.
Okay.
I agree.
And thank you. I believe the last comment was regarding the meetings and the regular meetings. So item 1, all meetings shall be held at this time, at this location, and then adding a clause stating unless there are unforeseen circumstances.
Right. I think that's
Correct. Like what we have now. It changed everything.
Sure. Do we?
May I suggest that maybe instead of unforeseen circumstances, just saying except as otherwise permitted by law, this body could certainly call a special meeting that's permitted by law. This body could call an adjourned meeting, which is basically a continuation of an existing meeting. That's certainly permitted by law. That may capture, I think, what the essence of that other sentence is.
Yeah.
Probably has a better scope to it. So I would humbly suggest that as perhaps alternative wording.
Sounds much better. Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
I think that change is good.
Okay. So let me just recap for the group. So the first edit would be to section A, omitting the word regular for members. No change to section B, 1 regarding the timing of the selection of officers.
Right.
Deletion of section 2A, sub number 5, regarding the ex officio membership for chair on a committee.
Right.
And no change to section D regarding the rules of order. And finally, regarding under section meetings, B1, all meetings shall be held on the second Monday of the month at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall, except as otherwise permitted by law.
Yeah.
So those are the proposed amendments at this time.
Any comments, guys?
No.
Pretty much covers it.
Okay, then I would accept the motion that we approve the bylaws as how would I say that, Tim? As we've voiced our change during the meeting. I want to make sure we don't leave anything out. With the updates that we've agreed to, let's put it that way. That seem reasonable? Then who wants to be the wonderful person that makes the motion?
Here, let me see.
Well, then do it.
Okay. Ivan,
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Hold on, take it.
you move to approve and with the changes that we've agreed to during the meeting.
Yes.
Right, okay. Is that good for you, Michelle?
Sure.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We're good. Michelle, roll call?
Yes. So Commissioner Gonzalez, you move to approve the 2020 bylaws and rules of procedure for the Planning and Preservation Commission, including the recommended changes, omissions, and suggestions, added language. Is that your vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Marvin Perez, you second?
Correct. Yes.
And Vice Chair Pacheco, your vote?
Yes.
And Chairperson Durham, your vote?
Yes.
So that is a vote of 4 yes and 1 absent.
Perfect. Okay. Go back to my front. Okay. We don't have any, well, we just finished the continued business, so any other staff communications? Tim?
Sure, just a quick update on where San Fernando and the larger community is with the coronavirus. So certainly over the last couple weeks, for better or worse, the coronavirus and the pandemic has taken a little bit of a backseat to the civil unrest and the issues that arose out of a number of issues dealing with civil rights and police actions really nationwide. But coming back to coronavirus, we are still under a state and county order, compelling us to stay at home as much as possible. We are still, every day we're still getting new positive cases of folks testing positive with coronavirus. City of San Fernando, and we had a discussion about this at the last meeting. City of San Fernando, when you look at the number of positive tests per 100,000 in population, San Fernando's at the very top of that list in terms of that frequency. It's us and a handful of other communities when you look really countywide and statewide. So from the city perspective, we've reached out to the folks that pull that data. We've reached out to LA County Public Health to seek some answers on why they think that may be. And part of it is, unfortunately, communities that have certain demographics, persons of color, persons of certain ages, persons of certain socioeconomic demographics have unfortunately been significantly harder hit by the coronavirus than other populations. And certainly in San Fernando, where our population is 93% Latino, that is not out of line with what we're experiencing in terms of well above average impact here in our community. The other part of it, which is not necessarily bad news, but does contribute to the numbers, is we do have an above average frequency of folks being able to obtain testing. And without testing, you don't have a positive result. So it is a good sign that there is the availability of testing for our community. but that has probably contributed in some statistical level to just the higher number of positive tests in the community. In terms of testing, because I know that was something that was really, really critical and really, really lacking earlier on in the pandemic. So there is testing available in the city. You can obtain testing at some local clinics here in the city, as well as at the CVS located at San Fernando Mission. So that is available, and the county is still providing free testing to anyone locally as well at the Hanson Dam, as well as a number of other locations. So, and again, that's really for anybody. You don't have to be showing signs, or you don't have to be in sort of a a sensitive population in order to be able to qualify to go take that. So the testing is universally available now. In terms of the impacts in shutting down really the economy, certainly over the last several weeks, we've seen just a pretty rapid reopening of the economy. It started with opening up some of the lower risk businesses that where there's not a lot of human interaction, to a further reopening of all retail, first only to curbside service, and now to in-store service, however at limited capacity, and then most recently with in-store in-room dining in our restaurant retail, as well as some of the personal care services, barber shops and hair salons reopening, and public facilities reopening. However, still at this time, certain uses still are not able to be reopened. So certain park facilities, things like basketball courts or baseball fields are not yet allowed to reopen. Bars, fitness centers, gyms, those are not allowed to reopen. Houses of worship have been allowed to reopen, but at significantly reduced capacities. So we are getting word that sometime this week, the LA County will issue some revision to the Safer at Home order, and there may be some additional reopening of the economy. And so it's constantly just this balancing act between, reopening with still trying to preserve the safety and trying to minimize the spread of the coronavirus. That is my update on that big issue. The only other item I have as an update is last month I shared with the commission that the city had been nominated for an American Planning Association LA Award of Excellence, and I'm happy to announce that we're not only nominated, we have received the Award of Excellence from APA Los Angeles, the Award of Excellence for a comprehensive plan in a small jurisdiction. And so receiving this award, along with in 2018, we received the SCAG Against All Odds Award for the same comprehensive plan, which is SP5, the San Fernando Corridors Specific Plan. That's really the double whammy of local regional planning awards that any agency can achieve. So it's very, very impressive accomplishment for the city of San Fernando. At some point, I'll get some information on actually receiving an actual physical award that we can proudly display. Of course, because of the pandemic, the American Planning Association usually has an awards gala. That's not occurring, or if it does occur, it will happen much later in the year. So if it does or it doesn't, we'll celebrate once we have the award here in town. That concludes staff's comment. Thank you.
Super. Guys, any comments from you guys?
Question, Tim. Do we know what the current confirmed cases are in the city of San Fernando?
Give me a minute. I'll look up the latest numbers.
Roughly?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll give you the exact number.
Okay.
Okay, Tim, one thing for you. We were really good about posting our oh, come on, John, get your head out your ass. Our restrictions, the curfews, but we didn't do a worth a hoot when we lifted the curfew, no mention. So people call, I said, well, I don't know, look on the city website. That's what I did, looked on the city website. It was there, but it would have been a good for just to put a note out like we did with the curfews and stuff. That's just me comment.
Thank you for that. All right, I have the latest data, and this is these are through 8 o'clock last night, as of 8 o'clock last night, and in the city of San Fernando, we've had 225 positive cases and 9 deaths.
So that's not bad for 26,000 people. Yeah.
Yeah, approximately.
Yeah, that's pretty decent numbers for that. Okay. Any other comments, guys? Questions? If there are none, then I would accept the move to adjourn to July 13th of 2020.
Is there a motion?
Nobody wants to go home? Or I know Hector wants to. Hector, you want to make the motion?
Make the motion
Okay.
to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second? Oh, hell, I'll second. I don't care. And with that, Michelle, do we need to roll call that?
Sure, Vice Chair, you move to adjourn the Planning and Preservation Commission meeting to the regularly scheduled meeting of July 13, 2020. Is that your vote?
Did you cut him off?
Vice Chair Pacheco?
Yes.
Yes, all right. And Chairperson Alvin Durham, you second?
Yes.
And Commissioner Perez, your vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Gonzalez, your vote?
Yes.
All right, so that is a vote of 4 yes to adjourn to the July 13, 2020 meeting. And that concludes the meeting for today at approximately 7:58 p.m.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Stay safe and be healthy.
Keep up the hard work.
See you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Very well done. When do I need to come see you about signing stuff?
Um,
Always
we
call.